Matt, let me just change to my headset.
How's that? You hear me all right?
No, I could hear you when you first started, but now you're going through something else. Hold on.
How about now? Try it one more time here. It says it's going through my headset.
Yeah, it's not you. It's
There we go.
all right. Can you keep talking a little bit?
Yeah, how's this? You hear me all right?
It was, yeah, I can hear you fine. It was
Cool.
on my end. We have no Greg today.
He's coming. He's at home.
Okay.
So he should be on.
Okay. So, how's it going over there in Chicago? You guys hot like we are? It's 100 degrees over here in Portland.
It's nice, actually. The last few days I was down at the beach yesterday with the dog when I got home last night. And basically, the last 2 days have been like 75 degrees when I've gotten home. It was hot last week. Man.
Are you still losing weight, Ash? I said tough life. Are you still losing weight?
Yeah, I'm doing the keto diet right now.
I thought you already lost a bunch of weight. Now you're losing even more?
I did lose weight, but I put some of it back on, and I'm now working on getting it back off again. This time I'm going a little bit more strict on the diet.
Keto, huh?
Keto. I don't like it. I don't really like it that much. I'm more of a paleo. I don't like either because I like dairy too much. So I'm thinking about just going over to a more strict Mediterranean diet.
What is keto?
Keto is when you eat 70% fats, healthy fats, and 30% protein, and stay away from high glycemic carbs. So put your body in.
I'm kind of on an all carb diet. You know, I mean, I just figure, I just going the other way. Everybody's doing this thing, no carbs. I'm like, hey, you know what? All your major food groups, fried sugar.
Look, I'm going to be a big advocate, and I think all three of us here do the same thing. The one biggest thing that has really helped me completely is taking all the alcohol out of my life over the last year and a half. So that's a big winner, and I kind of drafted off of Greg on that one for the last that he's done that for the last 30 years probably. Matt, and you also.
When I stopped, it was like all of a sudden I wanted to eat a bunch of ice cream because you're not getting the empty sugars, right? You're not getting like if you slam 6 beers a night, you're not getting all the carbs that you get from that.
You could eat.
Let's talk about something else.
6, come on, you're just getting started. 6.
You can eat the keto ice cream.
Yeah.
Sean Higgins called me a quitter. Yeah, no, I am. I'm a quitter. That's the worst. So let's jump into welcome to This Week in Lumber with Greg Riley of Sitka USA, Matt Beamer, Hampton Lumber Sales. We don't have the golf championship to talk about. You guys both dominated that 2 weeks ago, but what we do have to talk about to start things off is what came out yesterday: new residential home sales. And new residential home sales. Greg and I had a little talk about this. I had a talk with somebody else out in Portland yesterday about it. So let's talk about this. New home sales. And when I believe I'm looking at the monthly new residential sales from June, were 590,000. 590,000 units, single family units, I believe we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, it's new home sales is condos also.
Also, but if I just look at what we're building or intend to build this year, it's 1.1 million. So I just do in my head the math and I say, hey, look, at 6 months ago when we were talking, we were bragging about how there was a small amount of inventory out there to buy for new homes. I'm guessing that's up where I think right now, I believe that the inventory, the recent supply is at a 9.3 months at the current rate.
Yep.
Yeah. So Greg, we can see your ear right
now.
We
went from 1 month to 9 months.
Well, I guess
No,
over
it wasn't.
time.
It wasn't. The new home sales inventory has been creeping out. So like that deal is, it's like, as completions go higher, and so I was looking at cancellations, and so one of the things that happens, and we've been hearing about cancellation rate at 20%. Pulte came out and said their cancellation rate is doubled from its long-term average. So what happens is when they sell a home, if it gets canceled and then resold, it does not count as a new sale, right? So one of the things that's happened, higher cancellation rate, that chews up sales, right?
Yeah.
Because they're having to sell something twice, 3 times.
Right. Now, does this seller get 2 commissions on that or not?
I mean, new homes, yeah. I'm gonna say no.
Well, so okay, so that's interesting. That's not surprising from what we see the Fed is wanting to do. So let's one
So
thing.
the real question is, where are new home sales going to go, right? I mean, we don't really, we're looking in the rearview mirror is, interesting, but where are we going to go? That's the real question.
Lower, maybe we could go lower, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the 2017 to 19 range, we bounced from the high 500s to the really to the high 500s to 700 was where we bounced. Then we spiked up in the summer of 2020 to over 1 million. I mean, I'm going to say, the new home sales number could drop down into the 400s, which will do 2 things. One is it will promote price decrease, right? Because you get higher supply, lower price, which will in turn create, supply creates demand. And, so I'm expecting the sales to drop over the next couple of months and then see a big rebound in Q4 as the lower price people buy that stuff up.
With
Yeah, I
what money?
wonder also how much of that buying will be done by industrial or corporate buyers rather than traditional families or
A
individuals.
higher percentage than historically. Yes, Matt.
Sure.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean
Very good.
that's the trend, right? We're
Yep.
trending towards a society where the idea of home ownership or car ownership or just ownership of things, tangible things, is becoming less, obvious. And more people are structuring their lives, not people our age necessarily, but people like our children's age, where they hire a service or they pay rent, or they do a different living situation than whatever we thought of when we were 25 years old. So the world's changing as we speak, and right now I think we're obviously seeing the effects of inflation taking a crimp out of people's budgets, and that's going to impact eventually that hurts the price of real estate, right? I mean, if you can't afford $5 gas, you probably can't afford a
Well, look at
$500,000 home either.
what Greg was saying. Like, this is interesting on the new home or new residential sales. I talked to a person that works for a large home builder. He said their Arizona market, with a guy that's worked there forever. They asked him what the foot traffic was, and he said it was reminiscent of 2008 last month.
Right.
Which makes sense.
I mean, think about what happened. Pandemic. We put $6 trillion into people's bank accounts, and you had pull forward of like excess demand. Pelotons, toilet paper, pick what it is. And so we artificially did too much of things. And then when that ran out, things have gone like they roll over, and it's return to mean.
Yeah, Greg, and you and I were talking before. You explained it real well. The Fed was buying, you said, a bunch of mortgages. So you look at the 10-year versus the mortgages. The 30-year is basically, the mortgages are usually priced off the 10-year. Does that make sense? Is that And
They are priced
they
on
are.
the 10-year because the average mortgage is 7 years.
So for a long time, up until I'll say 4 months ago, that spread was a lot tighter. Let's say it was 1%, right, between the 10-year and the mortgage.
It kind of runs between 0.5% and 1.5 or 1 3/4. I always looked at like 1 to 1.5 is the average.
So that is out now over almost. You were saying basically at almost 3%.
It's 2 3/4. It's 2 3/4 right now.
2 3/4. And the reason for that is now the Fed is trying to unwind all these mortgages and sell them back to banks and other places. And in order for these banks, I'm getting way over my skis and my competence of what I'm talking about here, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. Or for those banks,
actually, when you start going through this kind of stuff, you need to speak with conviction and so that you have credibility. If you just talk like you believe what you're saying, everyone else will believe you.
Well, so listen, so the spread gets out wide, and everybody says, "Why is that spread historically wide? Why are banks charging so much now?"
Banks aren't charging. Banks don't charge.
Or why is the spread so wide between the 10-year and the mortgage now, right? Historically, and it's a risk.
In 2020 and 2021, the Fed bought up 60+% of the mortgage-backed securities, and they drove that spread into it was down at about, it was under a percentage point when people were refinancing at 2.5 and 2 3/4%, right? And they held it down there. And so the problem is when they flipped on quantitative easing, and they started by rolling off, not renewing the government debt, but the mortgage-backed stuff, they're actually selling in the market, which has pushed that price up.
There you go.
We need to get Brian back on here from his lair in Colorado.
There you go. Yeah. We need to do a deep dive on this.
Yeah. He would actually explain it in terms that I can understand. I have an IQ of about 85, so I need somebody to draw pictures and stuff like that.
Is that Mensa level?
I think so. The Dunning-Kruger effect. All about that, don't you?
It's lumber Mensa.
I think I'm great.
So look at tomorrow we get the stat out to decide. It doesn't matter whether we're what it is. We are not in an inflationary. We're not in a recession, right?
Tomorrow, we don't use the recession word anymore. That's
well, but it's interesting. That's
racist.
I've been talking to a lot of people, and the recession thing is nobody really cares.
Wait! Before you go there, I just want to let you know I'm sitting here today. I am a white heterosexual male.
Oh, we're going off the rails here, aren't we?
This is the part where I got to rein this back in.
You need to pull on the reins.
Yeah.
No,
so I had a text from Smitty. Can you please refer to me as dude?
So we tomorrow we find out whether we're 2/4 of it. Is it GDP negative? Am I wrong on that one?
It's going to be negative, dude.
So we'll see if it's negative.
There's no finding out. We already know.
But the point is, employment still looks good. I think we can argue though that the participation rate is still not what it was pre-pandemic. Does that make sense?
Here's my deal is, and I'm not, I would normally, I think obviously it's bullshit trying to redefine what words are, what words, what words.
Sorry, I hit that button too late.
But we're not in a traditional recession in that, the economy's overheated and the Fed needs to raise rates to cool things down. Right? We're not in that situation. We're in a situation where unprecedented amount of money was put into the system and we created artificial demand. Okay. Where I disagree with from a policy standpoint right now is what we should be doing is instead of thinking out, hey, how can we retard demand so that we can hurt people? We should be doing everything we can to increase the supply of things. they came out with a stat yesterday where something like the Biden administration has put in like over 100 new regulatory, proposals
Yeah.
implemented that are basically costs that create an additional cost in the economy of like $2 trillion potentially. And I mean, it would seem to me the 101 would be, hey, why don't we not do that? But that's just me.
So with all of that, talking about the residential sales, the slowing of housing, which we all know, how is that? Let's go back to the real thing everybody wants to talk about. Also, not what's it going to do to the price of lumber, right? So there's a few things where we had summer shutdowns in the east, which we normally have. We had, I think the main shipping areas are kind of clearing up. Does that make sense, Matt? Truckload. Fires aren't as bad right now, although I guess there's one in Yosemite and a couple other places. But
They log in Yosemite?
Yeah, well, not in Yosemite. I'm just talking fires in general. But with the new night helicopters now, that's a game changer for fighting fires. That's one reason why you don't see as many in California, because they can fight fires 24 hours a day now using technology, which they were not able to do that before. And hopefully they get that up to Canada and other places also. What are you seeing, Matt, and the pricing in your area that you trade out of, which is basically Pacific Northwest, Western Canada, and then all the markets all the way down into Texas, which you basically you live and breathe the Texas market and can pretty much tell anybody any day of the week within a couple dollars what something's trading at.
I think the market is it's got a slight downward tilt to it right now, and that's reflected on Random Lengths. If you look at print the last week or two, it's kind of flattened out, and the next move is probably going to be downward. And I think the overall big picture is downward. Now the question is it a lot downward or just a little bit downward? And I don't see real signs of desperation at this point. I think the mills are getting plenty of orders still. I know that we've had a good week so far selling lumber at Hampton. Surprisingly, actually, I kind of expected to be slower this week because we ended last week a little bit slow. But, I had a really busy Monday. I had a really busy Tuesday. Today's going just fine. And, I don't think that the mills in the Western North American markets are out of orders, right? And so when do you see kind of panic in the streets or mills really slashing their prices when they run out of order file and when they have empty cars to load? Those things aren't happening. We're not running out of order file and we don't have cars to load. So pretty fair trade right now. I think the offers are coming in anywhere from list prices to minus, say, 30 or 40, depending on the different items that you want to sell. Low grade, economy, 2x6 number 3 is one thing that's kind of pretty soft right now. Whereas the higher grade lumber, I think, is holding its value. I think a lot of it is that, generally speaking, most places don't have tons of inventory laying around. So the industry's
I agree. That's a great.
The industry's done a good job of keeping their inventory sort of stable and adequate, and the mills have done a good job of doing the same thing too. So it's a boring midsummer market with a slight downward feel. I'm more concerned about the fourth quarter than I am about the next 2 months. I think there's the economic wins that we're seeing right now that they talk about in the news and that we were talking about, 5 minutes ago, that doesn't bode well in the long run for the housing market. And I think we'll see the worst of it in the last part of the year here. That's my concern at this point. I think the immediate future is fine.
That's a good point, Matt. And over to Greg. We'll talk about the poll that you put out this week on LinkedIn. Maybe follow up with that. And Greg's been saying this too. We talked about a few things. The mills are doing a good job keeping stuff moving, and I think some people every time. I think there's a group of traders out there. Some of them still went out, and from what I can see on our platform and what I see talking to people in the industry, there's still short orders that got to get covered in here, right? That have been taken, and that I know, especially in the eastern part of the U.S. 2x4 16s and Euro and other things where people just thought they'd show up and be able to make a bunch of money on. That's keeping a little underpinning on some stuff. And Greg, you and I talked about this. What are you seeing in your neck of the woods and the markets you trade in with multifamily and the eastern part of the world?
Well, so I guess first thing is that in Eastern Canadian market, there's summer shutdowns this week and next week. So there's a number of producers that are not producing and are on summer holidays, which is take some pressure off the market. In addition, and maybe we could come back to this, but the transportation issues that have persisted for the last 6 months, I'm positing that that's never going to change now until you get a dramatic fall off in business overall. The railroads have lost 100,000 employees over the last 15 years. They were cutting employees prior to COVID as they were reporting record earnings, and COVID just put them over the tipping point, and they can't catch up. So, I know for us in our mill, we're just assuming we're only going to get 60%, 50 to 60% of the cars that we need. So we have an all of the above strategy. We're committing to pay the extra money for a certain number of trucks every week. We've opened a new Origin reload, financed it and put the guy in business and guaranteed him volume to ship on a US rail out of Montreal. And I think others are, if they're not doing that, they need to do that and plan for it. At some point down the road when production and demand is down, there'll be extra cars around. And I guess my thing is when mills have more cars than they need, that's probably will be that will be the bottom of the market. But back to, like your point, Matt, is that the customers are not going to build an inventory. They're going to buy what they need every day, day in and day out. And that's going to keep a steady flow unless, something upsets things. And or until, business, the real question is, hey, what does business drop off to in August, in September, in October? Do we go from 1.7 million housing starts the first half of the year to 1.5 million? Or is it 1.3 million? Those are really, different scenarios, I think.
Yeah, good point, Greg and Matt. And
it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter, I'll tell you why. We haven't been able to build more than 0.4 million houses anyhow. So, we've been talking about this for 2 years, a year anyhow. We all have. We've had this discussion many times. Oh, 1.7, 1.6, 1.8, 2.0. It doesn't matter. We're only building 1.36 or 1.41. That's the cap. There's a bottleneck there. It's been there the whole time. So, doesn't matter. That's my.
Well, I mean, and to that point, there's currently 1.68 million houses that are under construction, and if we can only complete 1.3 million to 1.4 million, if I do that math, we've got over a year's worth of stuff in the pipeline right now. So how many do we need to start down the road? Maybe
not very many.
Maybe starts drop lower than I think because of that, right? And overshoot. Sure. Maybe they drop to 1.2 million.
How many houses are for sale?
All of them.
There you go.
I always pull that one out for where people, I go, what's the available amount of existing homes for sale? And when I say all of them, which is Greg's famous thing, everybody looks at me like for a second, and then they go, "Oh yeah, I get, okay." So let's
because it's like they came out with the pendant, the existing home sales, and it's like, hey, it's there's only 3 months supply, right?
Right, exactly. So let's talk about. I'm almost worn out of talking about this, but let's just finish it up anyway. On August 8th, we're supposed to have the new CME contract. It's going to be 4 instead of 1. I'm reading on social media and everywhere where everybody thinks we're going to trade 10x of what we're currently trading because of that. In order for that to happen, you need more participants. I don't see that many more participants getting in because it's maybe some speculators will, but the proof will be in the pudding whether that happens or not. But when I read somebody saying that there's going to be 10x the trading relative to today's volume, so right now if we have 1,600, there's going to be 16,000 based on today's thing. I say, where's that going to come from?
I'll take the under on that. I'll take the under.
All right. So I hope I'm pleasantly surprised, but the amount of people I see in the industry that actually know how to use it, and I personally think that I hope it works and I hope we get more people, but you need to have more people understand about the trade. I think the same people will trade it. I don't see more people coming in, maybe a few speculators. Matt, what do you think?
For as big as our business is and for as much fluctuation as there is annually on pricing, we sure are small when it comes to futures. You know what I mean? I mean, Ashley, you have friends that are farmers that may or may not be the most sophisticated people in the world, but they're trading hog futures and I mean, they're soybean futures, cattle futures. I mean, these people in agriculture look at futures so differently than the lumber industry does. I mean, I see futures as a hedging tool for my business, right? But there's other reasons to trade futures. If I was a Chicago area distributor, I'd be all for this new contract. It gives me a whole new customer base. I don't have to worry about what Acme Lumber down the street says my 2x4 random's worth. I can just open up my futures contract and say it's worth that, right? It's worth that. I've got a truck sold at that price because I just called my broker and sold it. So you don't have to guess what the price of Chicago area trucks are anymore. It's going to be a good deal for those people that actually want to use it that way.
Yeah, no doubt. And
then if you're a buyer, you can actually take delivery of it too. I mean, I'm all for futures participation by our industry. I would lend my name and my expertise to any group of people that wanted to increase participation from our industry with the futures board. I trade futures regularly, so it doesn't bother me. I think a lot of it is just fear-based. People just have this fear of the unknown and they don't want to do it, and they just don't. They just shut their mind off and go, I don't want to use this tool. But
maybe
change will create opportunity.
Maybe at a 25% entry fee to sit at the table, right? I mean, because there's only one way to learn how to trade futures or to hedge late. I don't care how you do it. That's to actually walk up to the poker table or to the, let's say, blackjack table in this case, sit down with all the people next to you and put some chips in. Right. Otherwise, you're giving somebody else your money to go sit at the poker table and play for you. I mean, so to speak. I mean, I know that's Greg's
really good at this, right? Greg was involved in the futures from the get-go. Greg, what do you think about all this?
All the things that you said, Matt, I think that I credit all of that to, my ability to, put shoes on my kids' feet is, all those people that don't understand or are afraid or too lazy to learn. That's what provides opportunity for me. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
And speaking of shoes, I'd like to promote my new Hey Dudes that I bought.
Where did you find those?
They're like a hug. They're like a hug on your feet, and they're light as a cloud. So I just want to promote my new Hey Dude Wally socks.
Are those the MX Hey Dudes? I mean,
I haven't
branded.
They float. They float also. Just so everybody knows.
Like, what do you get? You get like $1 for every pair of those that they sell at Hey Dudes.
That we're still in the negotiation of that right now, but we'll say. But I really enjoy them. It's my first pair. They are ergonomically squish in there to your feet, and they have memory foam in them. They're beautiful. Love them.
Yeah, I'm getting some right after we hang up.
There you go.
All right, all right, boys. So I appreciate the the conversation today.
Hey,
Looking
don't
forward-
forget MX platform, digital,
Yeah.
digital way to buy lumber.
Yes, MX. Let's bring it up there. MXLumber.com. Come there and register. You can digitally be buying and selling lumber and get in the flow, the digital flow in the digital order file to see what's going on in lumber and the way it's trading. So if you do one thing to come over and just you're smarter seeing the way it trades amongst other people you may not talk to, come on over and register. All right, boys,
Awesome.
have a great day. Thank you so much for taking your time, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Take
Ash. See you,
care, Ash.
Matt.
All right, guys.
See you,
Yep, bye.
See you, Greg.